for example, I'll give you something funny. After Miriam's passing, I decided I'm not going to weddings. If I'm here for the next 15 years, but I'm not building an ecosystem, I'm actually like building and peaking with the ecosystem and declining with the ecosystem. So you really want to be at the right stage of that ecosystem.
You don't consider getting a proper diagnosis? Aren't you curious?
If anything, I think it's a superpower. In lycée, you graduate school.
Yes.
You're not too young
Yeah.
when you finish
Yeah.
school. So I had a driver's license.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean
But
I was...
mentally, you were young.
Mentally, I was like, yeah.
This episode is brought to you by EFG Hermes One, your one app for investing in more than 35 stock markets worldwide. Hi, I'm Malak Fuad, and welcome to What I Did Next from A&T Media, where I sit down with a new guest each month and we take a deep dive into their lives' most pivotal moments. I'm joined today by Karima El Hakim. Karima is the country director at Plug and Play Egypt and co-director of the company's operations in the rest of Africa. Just as importantly for me, she's also one of the show's biggest fans.
Chirag, the producer, loves this thing that you told me once, that you came off the plane once and you had binged the show and you hadn't known the show before. And you just ended up listening to many, many episodes. This is before we were on YouTube. And you came off the airline and you called me and you had all these ideas and you were just really engaged about the show. And I found it really endearing and I was very touched. And I was really excited that it really impacted you like that.
I am a big fan of the show, so this really helped me not just prepare, but also feel honored to be part of the show after all these great people and very accomplished professionals and thought leaders have been on it already.
On the first part of my conversation with Karima, we look at both her personal and her professional journey. Growing up in a Francophone household, she worked in Paris for a while before coming back to Egypt and getting involved in the tech sector. Karima is also an instructor at Bern, and that's where we first met. She was an incredible guest, extremely open and very honest with her journey, talking about so many really deeply personal things. As we do very often in the interviews, we begin with the early years, and for Karima, that dates back to her time in a French school in Cairo.
When I want to stress about how French my family was, it's like we were watching Friends on TV on a channel called AB1. So I don't know Ross and Rachel. I know Ross et Rachel.
And it was in French.
And it was all in French. But it's also, my family really was very loving, very inclusive. So I had a seat at the table with my parents. And even at a very young age, in my early teens, they tell me about their plans, if we're going to, acquire something, and I would be part of the conversation.
And you have siblings?
I have a younger sister.
How much younger?
4 years.
Okay, so you were raised together. It wasn't too far apart.
Not at all. So we were very close growing up. And obviously, when I was a later teen, I was a bit more intimidating. So we lost a bit of our friendship. And then later in life, when I moved to France to study, she joined me there, where we rekindled, but also had our tough fights.
I'm sure.
For sure.
And now that you're adults, how is that relationship?
We're very close. We're very good friends. I would not say she's my best friend, because she's first and foremost my little sister.
Yeah.
We have a very unique relationship where there's this unconditional trust and also a lot of complicity in what are we going to do next for our parents.
I think of you as quite a driven person, but a person who's also got so many interests and is juggling thousands of things that you're passionate about. So did that come from your childhood in any way, or is that just intrinsically you?
So I think what allowed me to be so driven is also that my parents pushed me for, let's say, academic excellence. And in the same time, I think I did very well. So I wanted to look at, my social aspect. So I never really struggled at school. And this was also because outside of school, I had so much extracurricular cultural activities that I was supposed to do. I had to read books in summer. I had to finish some summer exercises.
But this was from your parents' initiative?
It was purely my parents.
It
Like
was them.
every time I finished a book, which is almost at a 1 week
Yeah.
kind of frequency, I would get a gift.
And who would choose the books?
I would.
And what were the interests? I'm just curious for
I
myself.
was so there is a very classic, a classic literary old school book saga called La Bibliothèque Rose, Bibliothèque Verte, like it's the pink and the green, and
like
it was
an encyclopedia type
no,
thing?
no, not an encyclopedia, like a small little roman, so books,
yes.
like
Novels.
tales, novels, and there was a book called The Club des Cinq, so it was a series called The Club of Five.
Yeah.
Probably it exists in English. It's probably like a, and I remember that was my my favorite thing to read. I think what drives me now is that I was not asked, and I was not, let's say, I was not put into hardships. So my drive is to really help other people. So I'm not here to build something for myself, but what allows me to do more than one thing is my interest in, let's say, acts of service in one way or another. So I think as a child, I wanted to do a lot of acts of service so that I get recognized.
I wonder if that's also a product of being the firstborn. The firstborn tends to be wanting to be a pleaser. From what I read, anyway, I know a lot of firstborns who are always trying to meet the parents' expectations, high achievers. I feel that tends to be firstborns.
100%. Like I didn't know that this is a
you
common thing of
identify with that,
firstborns,
though.
but I'm from a people pleaser. Yes, that I'm working on not becoming a blind people pleaser, but definitely acts of service so that people are comfortable and happy, regardless of my own happiness. Yes, but also a lot of confidence you get from being firstborn, I guess.
Definitely. I find you a very generous person, and I find you to be an amazing connector of people. And I wonder if that is something that is from you, or it's something you learned as you progressed in your education and your work and so on. It's not everyone who's like that, but I find you very generous in your way with people. It's something that really struck me. So I just wanted to see if you're aware of that. Is it something you do consciously, or is it something that's just the way you are? Maybe you're like that with your friends as well, in social situations. I don't know.
So let me tell you something. First and foremost, in Arabic or in Egyptian, we say isma ala musamma. So I grew up with the name Karima. I guess also I bear the responsibility to be generous in the sense of my energy, my time, of course with money, as much as I can.
Yeah.
But definitely it's something that I'm conscious about. Since a very early age, I was taught that my name is Karima, thus you should. And I think people at some point, regardless of their name, generosity is a good trait to have. But thank you for your kind words, and I do acknowledge this. I do consciously make these decisions, not only for work or for people that I want to become, let's say, more acquainted towards, but even with my friends. I don't shy away from time in general, obviously within the best of my capacities. So being a connector is the core, and an enabler as well is the core thing that I do at work.
So you went to AUC, and after AUC, you went to do a master's in France in market research. Is that right?
Yeah.
This is such a niche interest. I worked in market research for a few years, and it's a really niche area of interest for people. What made you choose that?
Originally, just let me give you what I wanted to major in when I was in AUC. I wanted to be an anthropologist.
Okay.
So I wanted to literally sit and understand how cultures are created, languages, and how people use this for their social structures, for example. And this, I kind of like took this as a minor at the end, and I majored in business. And the mix of business and understanding anthropology, what really made humans make these decisions,
Yeah.
because the realization that people are at the end of every door that you reach, or every wall, and there's something about people. And this is where I decided to do more marketing and market research from a strategy and insights perspective.
Right.
The quantification of it comes with more professional
Sure.
companies like Nielsen and all these big.
I specialized in qualitative.
Yeah, I like
I would
qualitative
run
most.
focus groups.
Same.
It's really fun to do.
And we can talk a lot.
Yeah,
right?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I really loved it. And it was really weird stuff at the time, because it was just as the internet was rising, and I was in the UK, and it was an American firm, and all of our business in the London office was dealing with banks who were looking to invest in internet companies at the time. And so we would end up doing random focus groups about really weird things. One of them was on interactive TV. And at the time, they were saying this is going to be the next big thing. Taban, it never happened. So we would run these focus groups all around the UK, asking people their thoughts about it. But it's fun to see how people think around the country, wherever you are. It's just I enjoyed it.
Can I tell you something interesting? One of the things, and I'm not going to disclose just in case, because I'm sure this is not going to make people happy, but at some point, one of the things that a big FMCG was looking into is to test the reaction of the public to a press release after the assumption that one of the moms who's buying products for her kids discovers that they're adding artificial colors. So if this is the case,
Yeah.
how would the company prepare its press releases, and which one actually
To use.
and fits the future scandal? So it can also let
Yeah.
you know that
Come
at
on,
the end of
it's
the
crisis
day,
management.
I don't know if
PR.
it's
It's a fine line, isn't
very
it?
fine line.
It is.
So so
No, I mean you can extrapolate that to any kind of crisis or any kind of scandal. You talked to me in our notes here about having spent some time in France. How long were you there for, all in all?
to live there, I overall 4.5 years.
And
but-
your master's was what, a year and a half, 2?
Yeah, a year and a half, 2.
Yeah.
And I went in and out because
Right.
I did an exchange year. It was a mess. My parents didn't want me to finish school and go straight to Sciences Po, because that
Okay.
was kind of my ideal
Yeah,
situation. I was
yeah.
too young. Again, my parents were extremely supportive, but
Yes.
they were actually right.
Yes.
At that age, I would have probably been a liability.
And how old were you then? They were
I
talking
was
what?
18 because
18.
in lycée you graduate school.
Yes.
You're not too young
Yep.
when you finish
Yep.
school. So I had a driver's license,
Yes.
but that doesn't mean
But
I
mentally
was
you were young.
mentally I was like, yeah, I was 18. Um,
And so you came to a point when you're in Paris where you were missing something and you didn't want to stay. What was going on?
I was
You wanted to
missing-
return to Egypt.
Yeah, I was missing the drive. The drive, I think, got a bit killed, destroyed
By what? How come?
by bureaucracy, by France,
Really?
and I think I'm not saying Egypt is more dynamic, but I think my profile in France and the eagerness I had to maybe create something new and do some entrepreneurship, I was perhaps in the wrong company.
Yeah.
Not that Danone was a great lesson and a
Sure.
great company to work for at the time.
Yeah.
But again, we were selling yogurts. That was
Yeah.
my drive was not there, maybe, but also being away from my network, because at the end of the day, you mentioned that I'm a connector, and I think that I had this in me probably from before. So what can I connect?
And also when you're not raised in Europe and you go as an adult or as a student, you're never fully at ease. You're a number. You're not seen. You're not seen like you are here, which is your country and your roots, and you know how to navigate here.
So I don't want to sound a bit weird, but actually in France, I was so well integrated. I can speak with the accent that you can think I'm
Yeah, of course.
I'm
A
born and
graduate
raised
of the
Moroccan,
lycée.
which actually sometimes I used to create a small accent so that people don't think I'm French, because I wanted them to know I'm a bit more exotic. I'm more
exotic.
interesting. I'm more interesting
Yeah,
than the rest of the
yeah.
people there. So this was something. So it was not about that. It was really about the drive and allowing myself to fail and to do mistakes. So by coming back to Egypt, I was able to have more confidence in mobilizing my network.
I want to understand something. You left your job
I quit.
and you just came home.
Yeah. I actually had an open, like I was currently there, and I didn't even want to apply elsewhere.
Right.
Or
Do you consider yourself a risk taker? Because most people find themselves in a good job, especially after you're graduating, and they're holding on to it for dear life. You decided to walk away and come back without a plan, right? Am I
no,
reading that right?
I had a plan. So I was asked to report directly to the CEO of Orascom Development at the time.
So you had all that already
I came
planned
back
out.
for an Egyptian
I see.
job. And I actually saw the opportunity for Egypt more than anything. And I had the privilege to have known, at the time, she was the CEO of Orascom, Dr. Manal Hussein, who's also a mentor to me. And she brought me back with a very concrete offer. And I ended up working for the company, which also was a core building block of my professional career in Orascom Development. And I worked there for 4.5 years. So this was my real first job that I didn't hold too much, because I had also more opportunities coming, but I did not. I when I came, I stayed. I fell in love with the company. I did more than one role there, which allowed me to really learn, and ended up reporting to semi-reporting to the family office. So I also understood family office dynamics within a publicly traded, homegrown conglomerate / multinational.
Yeah. It's interesting for me because I'm guessing at this time you're about 24?
Yeah,
More or
24,
less.
26.
I think back to my own time at that age group and that age, and I was so less driven, and I was just much more aimless. So I would get offered something, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds interesting, I'd do it. And then something else would come along, okay, I'll try that. I didn't have this drive that you have. And it's super interesting because for me, at 24, I felt like a baby. I didn't feel like I had the maturity to make these kinds of big decisions, right? I mean, these are pretty and very conscious decisions. You're making very conscious choices of someone, to me, who is 10 years older, which is what you are now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a different dynamic than what I experienced myself.
I don't know. I think it's more of a character thing,
Maybe.
than either a generation or industry.
Maybe also you were presented with an opportunity that you really recognized as amazing, the Orascom job. And you thought this could be really something I can get into.
Yes and no, because this was also 50% of me wanting to move back to Egypt.
When we come back after the break, Karima tells me about her eventual pivot into the tech world, as well as her work with ESMA, the Egyptian Society for Mercy for Animals. This episode is brought to you by EFG Hermes One, your one app for investment across more than 35 stock markets worldwide. With EFG Hermes One, you can buy and sell orders in real time for immediate execution across multiple global markets. You can keep track of your favorite stocks by creating and customizing multiple watch lists, and make informed investment decisions with their advanced technical analysis tools to study market trends and investor behavior. So supercharge your financial journey and download the EFG Hermes One app on the Apple App Store and on Google Play and start investing today.
I want to segue into something a little bit more personal and maybe much harder as well. You talked about a loss that you experienced. What happened? Tell me about that.
So it was in 2018. I experienced 3 losses in a very short period of time with three different people that meant very different things to me. Um, well, I'll say their names because one of them is a dear friend of mine, Miriam Rashad. So she lost her life in a very ugly accident because we were both colleagues working in Orascom, and in Montenegro. This, let's say, I call it freak accident happened.
Car crash.
No, no, it was a paragliding
I see.
accident that happened,
Uh-huh.
and she lost her life super soon. She was an incredible person, and this broke me so much because it was the first time I was faced with that
Yeah.
in Montenegro. Because
Yeah.
I was literally, I just landed from the plane. I was supposed to stay with her, and someone called me thinking I already found out. So
Wow.
they're like, "Oh, are you going to Montenegro? What are you gonna do now?" And I'm like,
You're
"What's
not
happening?
understanding. Yeah.
What's happening?" They're like, "You don't know about Miriam," and I'm like, "I just landed. What's going on?" And they hung up the phone without telling me because they realized that I
Yeah.
didn't know. So that was a big shock, and then shortly after, I lost the two women that I cared most about. Of course, my mom is the closest to me, but my grandmother, her mother, and my aunt, who is the sister of my dad, are two very strong women figures in my life that I grew up holding as a role model.
And did they die of natural causes?
They died of natural causes, but a day apart and
wow.
nothing to do with each other.
Wow.
And yeah, and I happened to also
And
be
this is all 2018.
2018 in a very short period of time. But at the end of the day, it actually taught me, of course, the grief and loss. Everyone goes through that differently. It's kind of also the thing that we're most sure of
In life.
in
Yeah.
life. But it taught me that I can prioritize my social events. So, for example, I'll give you something funny. After Miriam's passing, I decided I'm not going to weddings. Like, I'm not feeling like going to weddings months later. So it took me years, and by say years, to actually attend a social wedding that is not, I'm not a bridesmaid of.
Yeah. And why particularly weddings? Was there a connotation with Mariam?
No, but
You didn't feel festive. You didn't
I
feel.
didn't feel festive, and I mean, I realized that I'm attending festive events where I'm actually not actually feeling festive. So it's great, and
Obligations.
you can't force
Yeah,
yourself. Yes,
yeah.
so it's fake festivities, and I don't know. Maybe I just needed an
Yeah,
excuse
yeah.
to say that.
You know, I was some of the audience will know that I relax by watching TikTok, and my kids think I'm insane. But I was watching TikTok last night, and I caught a few clips of Trevor Noah on Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO podcast. And the clip I watched really stood with me, actually, because he talks about how when you go through a difficult time in your life, everyone says it's going to make you stronger. You're going to learn so much from it. And it's always a good thing to have something challenge you in life where it's a really difficult phase of your time of your life. But he is saying, well, actually, that's not necessarily the case. What if none of that had happened to me and I'd had a very nice other life and I would have just gone ahead with my life in a nice way? Why do I have to be challenged in this way?
Absolutely,
You know?
definitely lessons are important, but at the end of
Sure.
the day, yeah,
But they're not always for the best.
of course.
Of course.
Especially losing people.
Yes.
So losing people,
Yes.
there's nothing that
Yeah.
justifies
Yeah.
the loss and
Yeah.
the lesson. But in everything else, maybe you can drive.
Yeah.
But yeah, hardships are not
How did burn
lessons.
fill for you a void, or how did you find maybe it was like a therapy for you? What did it do for you becoming an instructor at Burn?
So before the losses, I had prepared integrating burn. So it was not more as a comfort, but it was an achievement.
Yeah.
So I remember I actually got the news of my grandmother's passing while I was giving a practice class at Bern.
Oh wow.
It was the old Bern Zamalek too.
Yeah.
And just to mention something, because I mentioned a lot of women in my life, and I remember that I think the first episode I actually heard was Amina's episode before I binge into your show. The only, like, it's not the only reason I knew of it, but because
Of course,
Amina
because
was,
of your connection.
it's not just, so Amina is someone that literally changed my life
Yeah.
with Burn. So
I find her such an impressive person.
she is super
Yeah.
impressive,
Yeah.
super inspirational, and she shies away every time I tell her you're my role model, but she is a role model.
She
so-
gets embarrassed.
I know. But that's the imposter syndrome any good
Yeah.
and strong woman
No,
has.
I mean, and you know, she's really, you know, broken a lot of ground here on a lot of levels.
And she gave people like me the space to actually release and have something next to the very hectic job I have. Like today, if I can tell you one thing I'm not gonna give up, and they're looking at me like crazy because I'm trying to fit at least 2 classes or two different days a week in a busy schedule. But I'm gonna do it whether
what do you get from it?
I get the sense that I'm doing something else. I'm touching people's, let's say, emotional and physical well-being in a good way. So it's an act of service, but on an emotional level.
You mentioned to me that you have self-diagnosed ADHD. I think being an instructor and having a hectic schedule helps with that. It's a way of mitigating and the restlessness, right?
So definitely, well, I get my energy out for sure in the
Definitely.
morning. That's 100%. Yes, so I think the self-diagnosed part is also pretty questionable because I know that it is a serious like
But you
disorder.
feel it.
I feel it, and I'm for sure I have it. Like I was just watching, and I'm trying to be consciously talking a bit calmly while I'm sitting like this, so I'm not
But
being
you're dying
manic.
to speak fast.
I'm trying. I'm trying to keep my hands next to myself. But yeah, so I was just watching an episode I did with a more VC podcast. So there was a VC podcast. The guy was recording us, and I was watching, and I was like talking like a crazy person on the camera, and it's so embarrassing. And I'm like,
mindful.
Yeah, I'm just. This is exactly what I'm not supposed to do with Malak Fouad.
You don't consider getting a proper diagnosis? Aren't you curious?
Look, so far it's not harming me, and I know how diagnoses happen with the integration of medicine.
You're not feeling the need for medicine?
Definitely not.
Okay.
If anything, I think it's a superpower, and if used properly, it will not be harmful at all. But yeah, you just need to be mindful on forgetting the important things, because by multitasking, by doing, by being super focused, you tend to let go of other important things. So this is
for sure. And you also mentioned that you stopped drinking alcohol. That must have also been a huge benefit with the management of ADHD, right?
So yeah, I have multiple.
But
problems.
why were you drinking a lot, or?
It was not about drinking a lot. I think. Well, now that I talk like I'm preaching for this, but like one drink is an extra. It's
actually,
too much of a drink.
Perfectly honest, what you're saying is what everyone's talking about.
Yeah. So it was not about a lot. For me, it's about how I felt every day going to work, because I'm an overachiever.
Right.
Because I'm in Arabic, we can say "na bafruk." I cannot be hungover. So it was just. My lifestyle did not and my ambitions were not aligned with this. And it's just it's separate than my ADHD, because next to that, I have another disorder, which is an addictive personality. So, so I'm someone.
But you recognize all this. That's half the battle.
I guess.
Well, I also think if you're a burn instructor going to a class at 8 a.m., you can't be drinking the night before. It's not conducive.
You'd be surprised.
How
people can suck it up.
Maybe, but I think as we age, our body just doesn't take it.
Yeah. But but alcohol for me was more on the lucidity and the control that I recognized I have on top of my personality, because I've always told myself, I eat too fast, I drink too fast, I get addicted to a bad habit, and I can't forego.
But I think that's also an ADHD thing, by the way. It's an impulsivity.
Absolutely.
I know it well. I don't have it, but I know people in my life who do. And it's when you have an impulsivity, you can't control, Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yes.
Tell me about your entry into the tech world. You said it happened by accident. What happened exactly?
So I was after 4.5 years of Oroscom, both my boss and I were deciding to not continue, and I was actually in talks with a company that was doing solar, a big solar company, for hiring me, and I went to see the ex CFO of this company. To ask her for advice about how much money should I ask for, how should I negotiate with the CEO, who's a brilliant entrepreneur. So I knew he was
Yeah.
quite sharp, and I wanted to impress him in my meeting. And I went to see her, and she sat me down. Her boss came to the room, and he realized that she's preparing me for a job interview. He's like, we just launched this incubator accelerator backed by the government for startups. This is where the girl is working, and here you are. Isn't it a cool environment? I'm like, yeah, it's great. He's like, look,
You come to us
I'm
instead.
recruiting. I'm actually recruiting, and whatever you're preparing, I'll give you an offer. And I really like the way you think, because he had met me. It's not
So
like
this
he
is
walked
for
in.
plug and play?
No, that
This
was
is
for this
Fawri.
is for Falak. This was in
Ah,
Falak's.
Falak.
So yeah, so before Fawri, I was
أيوة.
in Falak Startups,
Yes.
which is the country's first government-backed incubator accelerator that also injects an investment ticket into the company.
And then from there, you made the jump to Fawri?
Yeah, so so Fawri was actually a direct recruitment, and the first time I actually reported inside an environment of, this is some serious work. We are publicly traded, and so it's not like what I was doing in Oroscom wasn't important enough, but I was not like making it or breaking it if I don't deliver properly something. And we were really doing some really interesting things. I was in the room when things were being decided, and I was actually executing this. So it was a very amazing opportunity that I got, and even the choice of leaving Fawri was the hardest, because I even had the conversation with Ashraf Sabri, the CEO of Fawri, who I reported to, and I told him I have the opportunity of having a director role inside a global company that will allow me to champion Egyptian tech.
No, it's a no-brainer,
It's a no-brainer, and
But you felt guilty leaving.
I felt no, but you know what? We stayed very close.
Yeah.
And until now, I'm actually very much in touch. He's writing me a recommendation letter for something.
In my view, Karima, this is the creation of an ecosystem.
Yeah.
You're all within the same world. I mean, بالعكس, the more of these that mushroom, the better.
But sometimes it's hard for people to not see things through and to fall in the trap of being perceived as you're not seeing things through. So when you're an ecosystem builder, it is a bit natural and it's not jumping ship. It's really finishing your job, moving somewhere else, unless you own your own company and you do this as an advisor, for example.
Yeah.
But if I'm here for the next 15 years, but I'm not building an ecosystem, I'm actually like building and peaking with the ecosystem and declining with the ecosystem. So you really want to be at the right stage of that ecosystem, be it if you work for a specific company or you're doing it on a national level, then the right time and what you define an ecosystem is. So as someone who has maybe 13 years experience, I don't have an experience that is longer than 5 years, for example. And I don't think I will ever have something like that on my CV unless I pivot within that role.
Why do you have an Instagram handle called Comme des Pingouins?
I have a flat foot.
Okay.
And I walk like this.
Okay.
I did a lot of effort into now. Today I walk like this. So my nickname by my very dear friend Charlene, she knows herself as well, was Batrika. So it was not meant to be endearing. It was
That's
meant
so
to be
funny.
making
An
fun of me.
insult.
Yes, of course. And she exactly. But I decided to embrace it. And the only time I used it was when I was writing articles on the school website in Sciences Po. So I called it the Penguin Chronicles.
Because I thought that it had something to do with your animal welfare work.
Yes and no. So no, actually, this has nothing to do.
It's
It's
separate
pure.
completely.
It's pure. Yeah, it's a joke on me that I decided to
Okay.
embrace. But they're so cute.
And so tell me about the animal welfare. How do you have time for
I
even
don't
more things on your plate?
because I'm a connector, so I try my best to join once or twice a week on calls with the team. So I support a very cool organization and one of the very first organizations to really help stray cats and dogs in Egypt's streets. It's called ESMA, Egyptian Society for Mercy for Animals, and they basically really do all the work pro bono to neuter and vaccinate all the stray dogs in the streets, but also in important areas like touristic areas in
Yeah.
and in private compounds, but also they represent all the animal NGOs groups in the eyes of the Egyptian government. So they come and they can lobby for policies
Okay.
and
Okay.
legislations to
Yeah.
be passed, etc. And I just find myself in these situations, Malak, where one, I can't not say no. Like I
You
literally
can't say no.
yeah, so I landed, someone asked me to connect them to this association and help them because they're abroad, help them understand how,
Translate.
yeah, and how to
فدخلتي
donate,
معاهم.
etc. فدخلت
You
معاهم.
went in.
بالضبط. I went in and I like animals,
like
but
it.
I have nothing particular or like there's nothing specific that has made me
Yeah,
like
yeah,
an animal
Yeah.
activist or advocate.
Interesting.
But yeah, so it's my drive.
The one thing you mentioned is that you're in therapy. Or
Yeah.
is that finished? Or is that a continuous thing?
So I just want to be a better person. I don't know how to get there, who's going to help me, but I know that I'm the first responsible person for that. So at first I did therapy with a therapist who is that prescribes drugs,
Yeah.
which is a
A
psychiatrist.
psychiatrist, yeah.
And this is why I'm a bit on the fence of approaching the idea of ADHD with that type of doctor.
Yep.
And then I struggled, and I'm very open about it, and I hope more people understand that it's so common, especially for young women, anywhere in the world. Yani it's with an eating disorder, and this eating disorder has until today is part of me. So I live
Really?
with it. I'm in recovery.
What
So
kind of disorder?
I have the binge eating and bulimia,
Okay.
and now I'm in recovery, so I don't binge
And
eat or
you got into recovery with a therapist? Is
So
that how you manage that?
I've been bulimic since I was 13, 14.
Wow, Karima.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous habit to
And
pick
it's
up.
quite a common thing, I think.
It's more common than you think. It's also I'm also the byproduct of a specific time where body shaming was a thing.
Yeah.
And a thing because there's internet. It's not like body shaming was a thing
Ah.
a long time ago, maybe, but with the internet is different. And it was more about the control, and I'm the perfect profile, like academic excellence, girl, a bit privileged in the sense of
and the
exposure.
control element.
And the control element and the ADHD element. يعني
أيوة
checklist
أيوة
and
checklist yeah.
addictive personality element
Yeah, yeah.
خديها بقى فاهمة
Unbelievable.
فدي حاجة this I've done everything and nothing تقريبا in a way. My parents were aware. It's not something I was able to hide for a long time. So they took me to the first couple of therapists or psychiatrists because this
Yeah.
is what they knew.
Yeah.
Now it's a very difficult mental health and it's a big mental problem.
And physically as
and
well.
physically as
Come
well,
on.
because unlike the other, let's say the twin brother of bulimia is anorexia.
Yes.
And unlike anorexic people, you don't look sick.
No.
Your guts are probably going to burst any day. You can die of a heart attack overnight. You don't have the nutrition.
Yes.
Exactly. So it's very messy. I saw multiple different therapists. When I traveled and lived abroad alone, I'd surge in and out of like times where it would be like an everyday thing, a 5 times a day thing, or once a week because I'm better. But then I started seeing a more specialized doctor. So only 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago, I actually decided to go find a doctor abroad because the people here were not specialized in that, or they'd prescribe me medicine. So one thing I've gotten a few times, I would be on Prozac. It would just not really work in the favor of my
That's other
creativity.
issues that you don't need.
Yeah. So now I'm doing much better, alhamdulillah. I don't know how long I'll do, but I think for now I found a good formula. I'm also doing other therapy, shadow work. I can't.
What is shadow work?
I don't know. I can't explain it, but what I can explain is that it's the therapy that would allow you to bring out all the subconscious shaming that goes back to your childhood and process it with the logic. So again,
With your mature brain.
with
as
your
well.
mature brain, and recognize that I'm not nice to myself. I'm the first person that is critical of this.
Is it a bit like your adult self going back to look at your younger self?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Maybe with a bit more nuances. You can
Yes,
can check it online.
And you're working with someone on this?
I'm working with someone here,
Interesting.
and I also have an energy healer. Told you I'm looking to be a better person.
But you know, Karima, I mean, I think it's great to explore everything
Yeah.
because something's going to work.
I mean, I'm not spending my money on wine anymore.
Exactly. So why not? Why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're ending. Lightning round.
Yes.
I don't want you to think about the answers. Just say what comes to mind first. And then we're done.
Okay.
Versa or golf?
Golf.
Oppa.
Versa.
Don't tell
I'm a
Amina.
teacher. I'm a teacher. And I
Do
buy
you ever do classes?
Versa, no, unfortunately. I'm really bad and poor in cardio. I'm my machine is the mega reformer. Like I will give up any sport in the world if I had the choice except mega reformer, not golf.
I see.
But Versa golf.
Ah, interesting. How long have you been playing golf?
2 years.
What's your handicap?
28.
And your husband, he's a golfer too.
He's a golfer too. I think he says his handicap is 11.
Ah, but you're not convinced by that.
I don't know. I feel he plays a 15. Yeah.
Public speaking or one-on-one?
Public speaking.
If you had to choose another profession, what would it be?
Teacher.
Really?
School
Well, that's
teacher.
kind of what you're doing. A school teacher. What would you teach?
History.
What's your favorite activity?
My favorite activity is traveling.
Traveling.
Yeah.
But not for work. Traveling for work gets hectic after a while.
It gets hectic, but unfortunately, it's one of the main traveling I do. So I learned to embrace it, try to travel around.
I don't like the word bucket list, but where would be your favorite next destination for fun?
Japan and Cape Town. I want to go to Cape Town again.
Cape Town is amazing. I've been twice.
Yeah, me
Japan
too.
is on my list.
I was hoping to go anytime.
you have to go.
Yeah,
But winter, not.
But you know what? I would go anytime.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
What's your least favorite activity?
Doing the dishes.
Doing the dishes. I'm going to say 2 phrases and you're going to end the sentence. I have a hard time.
I have a hard time taking a break.
I get joy from.
Getting people gifts.
Oh, nice.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please stay tuned for part 2, which is coming out next week. We're going to dive into Karima's work with the private sector through her jobs with Fawry and Plug and Play, as well as her time serving on the Economic Committee of Egypt's National Council for Women. You can also leave us a comment on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on Instagram, and let us know what you thought about this episode. You can also sign up to connect with me directly on our website. Just hit the subscribe link in the right top-hand corner and sign up for free. There's also a link in our show notes. Thanks for joining me today on What I Did Next. I'm Malak Fuad, and the show is produced by Chirag Desai. We'll see you again next week.